So no, I have not been very spiritual. I mean, to the extent I was raised in a Southern Baptist tradition, but even to that degree, I wasn't heavily into the church or the religion, if you will. So no, I was not at all very spiritual. Adversity drove me into spirituality. Pain pushes sometimes.
Can you share more about that? And did that happen before you came to the Atlanta area?
Hey, everyone. Let's Start Healing. I'm Adrienne Murchison, and welcome to the Let's Start Healing podcast. We have more in common than we think, and what we have in common can change the world. Well, this episode is really a special one and a lovely one because I have one of my favorite people, a most interesting person on the podcast today, which is Ms. Melody Kelley. I'm in the metro Atlanta area. I'm in a city called Sandy Springs. And I like to say that Sandy Springs is a microcosm of the U.S. Well, Melody Kelley is the first Black councilwoman to serve on city council in the city of Sandy Springs. But, that's just one of the things that Melody is about. She's a professor of chemistry at Georgia State University. She is a native of Michigan, and she came to Atlanta by way of Alabama. She's a single mom, and when she came to Atlanta, her daughter was in the 5th grade, and she's now a freshman in college. And Melody just has a lot going on, and we are talking about so many things. We're talking about life and culture and spirituality and navigating life and race, actually. There's so much that we are talking about here. Melody and I were friends before she started serving on city council, but we had to put boundaries on our friendship because I'm a journalist and I was covering local government in the city of Sandy Springs. So I'm no longer working with the company I was working with, and I'm not focused on local government in Sandy Springs. So we're able to be out of the box with our friendship and let the boundaries down and really chit chat about so many things. So this episode was really special, but it has been a lot to bring it to you because we wanted to make it special and pod in person, because normally I'm talking to people virtually. So she came here and we actually sat right here. And, I'm a very small production, and you have to love the podcasting game. If you really want to do this, if you want to be a creative and you have no production around you, the production is me. And I bring my know-how through my journalistic skills and family members who are technically savvy, and they will say, get this piece of equipment like this mic, or get that piece of equipment like my mixer. They just give me different tips to try to make this better, right? So what we wanted to do, since we wanted to meet in person and do this through video, I recorded the audio on my mixer and I recorded the video on my cell phone. And the idea was to remove that audio from the cell phone and link up the audio from the mixer. And so in me using all different kinds of software, I won't go into all the details, but me trying to use all the different kinds of software and link up the audio and the video succinctly has been such a challenge. I know that I have spent more than 24 hours total trying to make this happen. So I haven't succeeded so far. So what I did was I came up with another creative solution, which I'm bringing you today, if you happen to be viewing this on YouTube. If not, and you're on Apple or Spotify or iHeart or some other audio platform, then all's cool in the game. And if you're on YouTube, then, you have a little different experience, because I was like, I got to make this happen somehow. And this is what I came up with, something creative. Well, Melody, I am so excited about you getting to know her. I actually would love to have Melody as a co-host on a spinoff podcast. I've brought that up to her, but I don't even think she heard me. It just went in one ear and out the other. And she's a very busy woman. But I have some new podcasts out. I have Inside A Course in Miracles, which is around the study of A Course in Miracles, the spiritual study of A Course in Miracles. I also have Voices of College Park, which is another very interesting city in the metro Atlanta area. A lot going on there, a lot of issues and controversies, and I am bringing you the voices of the residents. And trust me, the things that go on there, if you check it out, if you're not paying attention to what's going on where you live, this could easily happen in your city. It's so important for residents to stay on top of what is going on in their local government. So, anywho, I want to get to Melody Kelley. Let's get started. Let's meet her and let's start healing. Welcome, Melody.
Thank you, Adrian. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. And I don't know if the audience can hear Shiloh in the background, and we may seem a little
Shiloh's
like
awesome.
Shiloh is awesome.
Love
And we may seem a little like Saturday Night Live right now, like a skit, like a NPR skit.
Do we?
I don't know,
really?
because we're so up on the, camera.
Okay.
But this is a little experiment, and
I love experiments.
It is what it is.
I love it. I love it. I'm so happy.
In terms of the video, yes. So this has been a long time in the making. I have wanted Melody on the podcast from the start. Well, did I meet you? We met before the podcast started.
Yep.
And
we had about a year or so in.
Yes.
Before.
And by the time we were like, oh, you need to come on, you were a city council person, and I was a reporter covering that city.
We had a conflict.
So we had a conflict. But now I am no longer with that organization. And so now I can have
now we
you
can
on.
Talk. We can go public with our friendship. This is this is a momentous occasion. This is not just the average podcast. I've waited a long time to have this conversation.
Yes.
So I'm going to just sit in this moment. Let me enjoy this.
That means a lot to me.
Oh, trust me.
I feel verklempt.
Oh. You were the first person I ever heard use that word a few years ago at your Christmas party.
I said that?
Yep. Used the word verklempt. I was like, oh, that's one of those Adrian words. I had to look it up. But I love it. It fits so many moments.
It does. It touches me. I feel touched. I feel touched. It means a lot to me that you're here. And there's just so much I want to get into. And I want to start by really going into how we connected. I think we met through Sandy Springs together.
Yeah, we met through civics. I mean, like civic engagement. We did not meet on spiritual terms.
Right.
We did not. And I'm not sure how we crossed into it. I guess.
Right. I was trying to think of it because we met. So we were with an organization that's about increasing affordable housing in the community for working people. And so we would go to meetings about this. Right. And then one day you asked me about meeting for a bite to eat.
Right.
And we met for a bite to eat. And that may be when I brought up A Course in Miracles,
that could have been
the discussion group that I was going to every Sunday until the pandemic.
Yeah. And at that time, it's so funny. At that time, I was at the very beginning of what I could refer to as an enlightenment period. And so it was I think, you're right. I think I was struck by something. I don't know if it was the mention of Dr. Dyer or Eckhart Tolle. Something came up. And I was like, ooh, you read that? You listen to that. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then you started
coming to the Sunday meetings.
I did.
And I was surprised that, and the reason I say I was surprised is because some people I might invite and it's just a one-time thing that they go, but it resonated with you. And so you continue to go to the discussion groups.
Not that A Course in Miracles is a challenging text. It wasn't like I just got it, but I appreciated the level of connection in the room.
Yeah.
And just so very often things resonated deeply, very often, from the text, and having you all there to kind of interpret and translate was helpful.
Yeah, it's you know what, I kind of learned something from that experience, since it's not a every Sunday morning meeting in person. Now the group meets virtually on Zoom, but it would be so powerful, the love from the conversation that would just raise up in the room. You could feel it. You could feel this energy in the air. And yes, the place where we were, the home that we were in, lent itself to allowing that to happen.
Sure did.
But I think it was also the point of what we were doing. You know, we were all from different backgrounds. At least a lot of us were from different faiths and backgrounds, but we were just bonding over a common love of our higher power or God. And there was something that was just raising up.
I agree. I also want to give credit to your podcast, right? So part of the reason that I was comfortable in those rooms was because, at least in the early parts of your podcast, you pulled from that room for some of your guests. And you all would, they were very great episodes where you would unpack some ideas, and it just made me even more comfortable being in that space, having had that exposure through the podcast. So
thank you.
Congratulations on consistently. You have been consistent. How many years for Let's Start Healing?
2019.
Wow.
So 5. Yeah. And it's really a love. If you're going to do this stuff, I learned from my nephew that either you're a creator or you're talent. Like when it comes to how you feel about podcasting, if you want to do a podcast, and I like to create. I like the doing of it. I like this.
Right.
Of it. And then some people, like, he loves podcasting, but he really feels like, look, just tell me to show up.
Yep.
I'll show up. I'll talk.
Yeah, I recently had a conversation with a young woman, incredibly dynamic personality, incredible person. And she expressed that. She's like, because she had a podcast for a little while, and she stopped because she's like, there's too much administration. There's too much that goes into it. I just want to show up and be me,
Yes.
There's value in that. There's value. So you do both.
Thank you. But where I fall short is social media. That's like, oh my God. So
the promotion of it,
yes,
so to speak.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I can't tell. Looks really good. You do the clips, and you do the thing where the clip has the words, subtitles. I don't know. I find it engaging.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, have you always been a spiritual person? So we met because you moved to Atlanta from Detroit.
By way of Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, did a few years there in college.
So have you, and we will get to that. I can't wait to get into your story. Have you always been very spiritual because this stuff resonated for you?
No, not at all. I'm a scientist by training, and I'm incredibly pragmatic, incredibly focused on the physical, what I can sense with my 5 senses. So no, I have not been very spiritual. To the extent I was raised in a Southern Baptist tradition, but even to that degree, I wasn't heavily into the church or the religion, if you will. So no, I was not at all very spiritual. Adversity drove me into spirituality. pain pushes sometimes.
Can you share more about that? And did that happen before you came to the Atlanta area?
No, while I was here. It was my first time being with my daughter with no family. And, specifically just before or right around the time we connected, 2017-ish, she was in middle school or starting middle school. It had to be like 7th grade, whatever year that was. And she just went through a challenging period. Understandably, hormones, and everybody who's read a book knows what happens in middle school. But it was tough. And I stumbled upon some Byron Katie and some Eckhart Tolle, and I said, wow, that's kind of maybe I should just be in the moment, or it gave me permission, and of course in Miracles as well, to choose a different perspective. I didn't realize I had a choice in that. It would be fair to say up until that time, I believed every single thought I had. Every single thought. Can you imagine? That is chaos.
And you know what? I know that a lot of people do, but for me, I would probably flip and freak out if I believed every thought I had.
Yep. It was every thought was like, this is real. And I'll just never forget how enlightening it was to receive almost permission to question a thought, or to at the very least examine. Like, hold on, put some space between me and the thing. So that's the impact mindfulness has had on me, and it's very recent.
That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. That's deep. That's deep, because I see why we would want to believe every thought we have, because we created that thing, mm-hmm. and we own what we create. Yep. And I have to tell myself that sometimes when I want to go down a rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So how would you describe God for you and your relationship with God? And it's so interesting. I don't know why I never thought about the fact that you are a scientist. You are a professor of chemistry at Georgia State.
And let me just say, to the point we were just making, when you're in academia, your currency is your thought or your thoughts. That's scholarship. So yeah, I put a lot of weight on the things that happen in my mind, because this is my livelihood. I get paid to think.
Exactly.
So it was tough.
And so for a lot of people, that's a lot of hubris that goes into that. I get paid to think, so my thoughts matter.
Right.
And my thoughts are true.
Yeah. I mean, or at least, yeah. So yeah, that's so interesting, but that's what I believed. Yeah, you're right.
So how would you describe your relationship with God? Has it been an evolving one, given what we were talking about?
Yeah, it has been evolving. That's the perfect word. I'll say this is what I'm proud of. I can now, and it's not perfect, but on a good day, I can hear, and I put that in quotations, but I could hear God in the whispers, because he used to have to smack me. Used to be real loud, but now we've gotten to that place, and I like it. I don't want him yelling.
So can you say more? What are the whispers like? Is it do this, don't do that? Or is it melody, you know better? Or what's it like?
Yeah, it feels like inspiration. It's that, I feel it's most jarring when I'm transitioning from a space of motivation to inspiration. So just being inspired, having a thought. And it's interesting because I realize that I'm perceived as a hard worker, but I'm mostly inspired most of the time. I'm not incredibly motivated now.
That's beautiful.
But I get a thought or an idea and I wait for it on a good day. I mean, obviously I'm prone to everything any human being is prone.
So are you saying that you get a thought and then you'll say, or you'll understand more to come.
Right.
And so you just like, I'm just going to let this sit. There's more to come. This will unpack itself.
Yeah, it will. Yep. And it typically does. It typically does. And I just want to be clear, I'm not like just sitting around. I mean, but sometimes there are often projects in life or goals you want to attain that cause anxiety, trying to figure out how. And I typically find God in the how. That's typically where we kick it, like in the how, and you know, this step, now this step, you know, I don't know if we talked maybe we have talked about Juneteenth. You know,
we're going to talk about Juneteenth.
We'll talk about Juneteenth.
Yeah.
But I know what it appeared to be to people, but it was literally just, okay, do this. Now do that. Now do that. Now do this. There was no grand idea for me. So, you know, that's a perfect example from recent.
Well, talk about Juneteenth. We're going to jump around, obviously,
Yeah,
because I want to.
I'm sorry. Because part of this podcast was making this special is like, I don't get to kick it with you.
No.
We don't talk a lot.
No.
And
sometimes we do.
I take fault for that. But when we do, it's like.
No, don't say what we do.
Okay.
But
yeah. So anyway, I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity to kick it. I'm going to let you like chop and screw it later, edit, do whatever you need to do.
But yeah, it's so you are a councilwoman. And let me say this. I like to say, and I said this to someone else I was just doing a podcast with who will be on in a future episode, that Sandy Springs, Georgia, which is outside of the city of Atlanta. It's a part of Metro Atlanta. And I truly believe that Sandy Springs is a microcosm of the country.
I have never forgotten that. You were the first person to say it. I cannot unsee it. Since you first said that to me.
I mean, it's got affluence. It has people who struggle. There has been in the past some race issues, working class issues, or class issues.
We have all the isms. We got them all.
Yes. Yes. So you are the first Black councilwoman. Are you or council person in this city? The city was established in 2005.
Right. I like to tell people that it took Lawrenceville almost 200 years to elect their first person of color. So it only took us, 16 or so. We're good.
Yes. And so Melody led a committee that put on it wasn't the first Juneteenth event.
Yeah, no.
Was it like the second?
It was
the third?
I would argue it was the first city sponsored.
Okay.
Like bringing it under the umbrella of our events.
Right.
So,
and I want to share a little bit, and then I want you to take a deeper dive. So it took Melody's efforts to make the city a holiday, but I want you to describe how it is a holiday, because it's not, I'll let you describe that before I stumble over it. And then, so this event that took place in June was so powerful to me because I started covering Sandy Springs in 2010.
Okay.
And so I have seen where there's barely anyone Black in the council meetings. And, now there is a lot of Black engagement. There is a lot of people taking a stand. And so this particular event and around Juneteenth, you got a lot of pushback in terms of it becoming an important holiday for the city. And so when this event happened, the very first performance, there were multiple things going on at this event, at the Performing Arts Center and the City Springs campus where City Hall is located. They have a green space outside and a stage. And so inside in the Performing Arts Center, which I want you to get into, it was so powerful to me because there was black and white and, just all shades and hues and backgrounds and white. And the reason that I want to say that is because I felt like these performances are going on and people who are not exposed to Black culture or other cultures, it was resonating.
Yeah.
They understood what they were looking at or being introduced to. And that literally brought tears to my eyes. I mean, it was very emotional to know the trajectory of the city and, the ups and the downs, and to see like, hey, this is resonating with this person and that person.
Yeah.
And, there's an understanding, and that's how we start to care about each other.
That's how we start to care about each other.
Because we're not different. Yep. We are not different from each other. We just
have more in common than we think. And what we have in common can change the world.
But
I really believe that.
We're not different from each other. So,
that's what it was. It was rooted in that, though.
Yeah. Thank you. So please speak to everything I just brought up.
That's a lot.
I know.
That's a lot.
I'll remind you.
Because you recognize that there is the event, and I'm happy to talk about it, but there's also the political exercise. And I want to just, take a moment and offer you flowers right now, because so we can talk about the event, and that's great. But before the event, there was like I said, there was a political piece of it, which was simply to get the acknowledgement and the funding and the holiday itself. And part of one of the reasons I value you personally is because, to the extent that I'm multifaceted, all these, I check a lot of boxes, you're one of the few people I feel comfortable talking about all of it with, right? And so I went through this, I would argue it was a weekend. We had a council meeting on a Tuesday, and the weekend preceding it, I knew I had to make an argument for Juneteenth. You mentioned there was pushback. There was typical, why do we need to change anything? Why do we need to add a holiday? Why do we need to acknowledge this? I talked to people who straight up said, I don't think it should be a holiday. We have an Independence Day. Why do we need an additional Independence Day? So I had an uphill battle, not just with my colleagues to sort of whip the votes, but to also speak to a community. And it was a tough weekend. And I don't know if you remember, I had to call you regularly. There was something happening, like spiritually and politically. Like I had to go places within myself I had never been. And I remember I had started doing the genealogy work for my family. I had decided, okay, I'm going to go. Actually, no, I did the genealogy work for Sandy Springs. I started going through old tax records and trying to connect those with slave schedules. And I really did this over a weekend, and it was incredible. I mean, you think what these holidays are about and what history is, but you start going through that documentation and you start seeing how human beings were counted like animals and things. And that's, that's where, you come from to some degree. And I just needed somebody to talk to, and you were there. And I could talk to you about the political side, which, is what it is. You know our community, but I could also talk to you about the personal melody side, which is, and I think what you expressed to me was, sort of whatever is sort of being birthed in you to kind of, allow it, right? And it culminated to a 17-minute presentation, which in Sandy Springs is unheard of for a council member to speak that long on a topic. And I went everywhere from, obviously, labor statistics, data on other cities and holiday schedules, but I also showed, my grandfather. And I went into the slave schedules and the data, the genealogical research related to my own family. which was raw. I had never done that. Obviously, I know I descend from slavery in America, but I had never looked for those last names. I'd never looked for those plantations. I will never be the same. My screensaver is my grandfather and has been. I used to change my screensaver all the time. Let me take a cute selfie. I'm going to change my screensaver. But it has not changed because I finally got it. I got it. And as I said in my presentation, I would never be the same. So anyway, that was the political exercise. And ultimately,
but wait a minute. Share about your grandfather, if you will, what you shared with at that meeting.
Right. So what ultimately came up, and let me be clear. Every year in early December, the city of Sandy Springs has something called a Sparkle Parade. It's early December. It's on a Sunday, or at least it was on a Sunday that year. Mind you, that was a Sunday. Our meeting is Tuesday. Now I have my PowerPoint presentation done. I'm done with it. But on Sunday, I see our mayor. And our mayor, he has like a ton of grandkids. And so this particular, at this parade, he has his grandson with him in the float. They have this float. It's like a car, a beautiful car, convertible. And he has his grandson. And there goes that inspiration again. The thought says, what about your grandfather? And so that night I went and I started to do the research on my grandfather, who was born in 1915, right? He was born in 1915, mixed race, Northern Louisiana, raised by his mother's family, the African-American side of his family. And I started going through picture books and I found several pictures. I have several fond memories of him being my first babysitter. My mom worked, and my parents worked, and I would be left at home with my granddad. And by that time, he was an elderly gentleman. He was on a cane, but he'd walk around, he'd chase me. I can remember, him letting me eat ice cream cake and and all kind of things. I vividly remember this man. And the people he was raised by were slaves. He was born in 1915. So the folks, his granddad was a freed slave. And that was full circle for me. The argument that is so far away. Not for me. I was raised by someone who was raised by slaves. I was influenced. A lot of the tradition I am here in came from him. And he got that from freed slaves. And that was ultimately the way I closed that entire presentation.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah. And then the event, if you could just discuss.
The event.
Yeah.
Right. So you go through all this, and it was a unanimous vote, by the way, to ultimately what we decided to do was we added a flex holiday for employees. So they got an additional holiday, but that holiday was not June 19th. The holiday is any day they want to take throughout the year. So they got the additional flex day, and then we decided to officially appropriate funding for
an event.
And the question becomes, how do you do it? Particularly with the understanding that Sandy Springs is, let's keep it real, majority white suburb, technically. It really is. It's a microcosm of America, which makes it a majority white suburb. And it's affluent as well. So there's a responsibility associated with that. And, what you could do is you could look all over Metro Atlanta and you could just kind of copy and paste. You can do that. Or you could truly sit down and maybe try to think about it. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to use art as a medium to educate. So we wanted to educate through art. And that's why inside the theater, we had approximately an hour or so performance. We said, we're not going to do a lot of preaching. We're going to have a few speakers here and there, but we want to leverage the impact that seeing bodies move and hearing music, the impact that has on a person. That's, sometimes that can jar people more than a speech ever could, or more than, so we weren't So we were interested in just going outside of the box. And it was very important that we obviously made the city of Sandy Springs look good. We have a brand. We wanted to be on brand. But it was important to me to make sure the people who attended felt honored. The people who attended. So there were people there, you know, who have been celebrating Juneteenth for decades. I wanted them to feel honored to be there. Wow, look at the thought they put into this. They didn't just slap, you know, a DJ and a couple food trucks together and call it Juneteenth. They put thought into it. How do we tell this story so that everyone gets it? And so when we kicked it off, and Namari, shout out to Namari Dance Center and Namari Productions, we kicked it off with Mary, Don't You Weep. 2 days prior to the event, I got to go to the Namari Dance Studio, which is a local dance studio here in Sandy Springs, and I watched those young ladies do it in the studio. And I was...
You were in tears.
I was in tears then.
Yeah.
So I knew what y'all were about to get. We kicked it off. We kicked it off as an ode to Christianity, because we know the part that has played in our history. Faith, let's put it that way. And so we had, you know, in the backdrop, we had like a cross, and then we had these young people do this amazing performance to kick it off. And I think that told everybody we're serious. We're serious. This is not some variety show. This is not some talent show. Come look at some kids. No, this is a story, and an idea of interwoven kind of performances that are meant to really bring something up in people. Yeah.
How did you feel after, like, the next day or that night when you got home? I mean, what were you feeling? Because it was, I'm asking because of the powerful, you know, the power that it exuded, you know, just.
So part of my, and I don't know how to, part of what happens to me is I typically go through depressions after doing something great. Or so when my plan, you know, I have a plan and a goal, and then typically when I reach it, you know, I start to go into like a little valley. And so that was what it was for me. It was like, oh, so how do we do this again? What is the path forward? So don't get me wrong, it was wonderful in the moment, but the next day I was like, oh, wow, we set the bar. That's problematic. We set a bar. That was, you know, it feels good when you're doing it.
Yeah.
Once you get that bar set, because now this is what the community, and they should. I think that part of my messaging, I went to city council meetings in Brookhaven, Georgia, Tucker, Chamblee, and Doraville to invite their elected officials and their organizations to the Juneteenth, because I want everybody to expect this for themselves. Yeah.
So did they all attend? I know that
we had a mix. Yeah. Chamblee showed up. Shout out to Chamblee. Shout out to Doraville. Brookhaven, we need to talk, and Tucker as well, but I'm still working on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was about.
So do you have a spiritual practice?
A practice. The closest thing I have to a practice is I engage in Byron Katie's inquiry work. So when in my moments of when it's really tense, essentially, and I don't know if you're familiar with that work.
No, I'm not. I know Byron Katie, but I'm not familiar with that work.
Yeah. So formally, the process is to ask yourself if when you're having troubling thoughts, a little bit of anxiety, a little bit of overwhelm, is to ask yourself 4 questions. Ultimately, what it results in is it helps you distance yourself from the thought. It helps to create the change in perspective.
And what are the questions?
So if you isolate a thought that's causing you a lot of strain, and you ask yourself, is it true? And the answer to that question is only yes or no. It's not, you are not allowed to be like, yes, but you know what I'm saying? You know, you can't do all that. Yes or no. And it does not matter how you answer it. The next question is it really true? Now, I know that sounds simple.
No, I love it.
There's power in that.
Yes, I love it.
Isolate this thought. And I could give you a perfect example of how I use it. You know, during that tough time with my daughter, she had become what I perceived to be extremely disrespectful. Like she was just in the morning, she'd be like yelling. And, you know, if I asked her to like clean her room, she'd be like screaming. Her answer would be crazy. And I remember one day, you know, I held the thought, this kid is disrespectful. Like she's a bad kid. That was my thought, right? And when I act on it, I only make things worse when I act on that. So I had to question it. You know, is it true? She's bad. No. You know what I mean? Like I immediately no. Is it really true? No. I mean, it's not. And then the third question is, how do you react when you believe the thought? And so you have to sit in that.
Whoa.
You have to sit in that moment. So what I had to do with my daughter was I had to sit in the moment where I'm standing in her room and she is screaming at me. And I had to think about what comes up in me when I believe this kid, she's doing the most right now. And I had to, that anxiety, that anger, I get angry, I get, you know, I want to discipline her, I want to yell at her, I get sad.
Wait, say the last question again.
How do you react when you believe the thought?
Right. So is it true? Is it really true? And the third question
is, how do you react when you believe the thought?
Okay. You haven't told us the fourth question yet.
Nope, I haven't.
Okay.
Because the fourth question is, what happens? How do you react when you don't believe the thought? So when I am standing, and that was powerful for me, because in that moment, what I do, and this is kind of a meditation. You have to sit in that. So I'm standing in her room mentally. This is the exercise, and I'm not holding the thought of she's bad. What am I doing? I am literally looking at the most beautiful person I have ever seen in my life. That's what I'm doing. Yeah, she's upset. She's crying about it. She's yelling about something. But she's just a beautiful kid. When you take the thought away. Yeah.
And so how did you adjust after that? That's so beautiful. I'm going to comment in a minute. It's so beautiful. How did you adjust after you came to the awarenesses that came up for you?
So then this is the last piece of it. So you do the 4 questions. And what you do then is you practice what are called turnaround statements. So you take the original statement, you turn it around, and you assess how true it is. So I go from she's a bad kid to she's a good kid. And then I sit with that. Can I find any evidence that she's a good kid? What comes up in me? I think about her baby pictures. I think about her ballet recital. I think about, all these things. Because ultimately the realization you come to is that the opposite thoughts are just as true as the one you had.
Right.
And so you practice all these turnarounds and you can find evidence for them. So then ultimately what you're left with is, okay, I could think a thought that makes me feel like crap and scream at my kid, or I could think a thought that makes me love her. Both have enough truth.
Right.
Both have enough evidence.
Right. And what comes up for me around that is so powerful. That's doing the work.
Right. It's called the work, actually. That's what Byron Katie calls it.
That's what she calls it?
She calls it the work.
That is doing the work. And it takes me to A Course in Miracles, to the concept of, if it's not love, it's a call for love. Mm. And so the way she was acting was a call for love.
Yep. That's it. Yep. Nonviolent communication, right? It's always an expression of some kind of need.
Yeah, that's really powerful.
So that's, if I had to say, do I have a practice, that would be it. And sometimes, you got to take a notebook out and write it.
Yeah,
just do it. Yeah.
Do you have times when you let God do God's thing? Do you have times when you talk to God.
Talk to God. Yes, I do. I do. Yeah, my most, but you know what? I don't know how to pray per se. And I know you're going to say, oh, it's not, all you have to do is talk to God. Prayer is just talking to God. But I have had one of my interests one day is to learn how to pray effectively and publicly. I don't know how to do that.
What do you mean when you say publicly?
Let's say over a meal, give grace. I'm not comfortable doing that. I'm not comfortable with any formal sort of declaration. This is deep for me. I'm only doing it because I like you. I'm only here because I like Adrian. That's why I'm here. I can't believe I'm doing that. But,
yeah, no, I have at least two friends that are coming to mind that are masters of prayer, where it's, can we sit on the phone and you just say a prayer for me right now? And then they just go, or it could be grace, or they just, they are masters.
Right.
Yeah, no, I can't do that, but it is just talking to God. Mm-hmm. Or, I might say a prayer, which is like a formal prayer that we know, like the Lord's Prayer or something like that. But otherwise, it is talking to God. Sometimes I will just repeat either God over and over. I'll just say God, God, God in my thoughts. Mm-hmm. Or I'll say Holy Spirit over and over again. Mm-hmm. Or I'll say Jesus over and over again. And either of those, depending on where my spirit is, because I don't want my brain to work too hard and saying the word.
Yep, that's it.
So whatever the ease is in terms of getting the word out in my thoughts, I'll repeat that word, and then I'll let that quiet my mind and take me into a meditation.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not there yet. I need to get there.
You don't need to do anything. You just, I'm just talking. Yeah. But I was just wondering if you had a morning practice before you start your day. Do you do anything to arm you for the world in terms of prayer or spirituality?
I keep my vision board in the bathroom. So whether it's conscious or unconscious, or unconsciously, I reflect on those images every morning. And we talked about this. I listen to stuff, so I'm gonna play a little Joe Dispensa some every morning.
Yeah.
a little bit of something just to get me ready.
And you listen to other people too. And but I want to just bring up Joe Dispensa for a minute, because it's something to me, the people that I know that really like Joe Dispensa are very smart, heady, intelligent, academic people, because he says basically the same thing to me that A Course in Miracles says, but he doesn't resonate for me because he's just so logical.
Heavy jargon. And he's logical, yeah.
Yeah, and I like the holiness. I like holiness. I like love. Mm-hmm. Not that he's not that, but but it's, so I want you to share what you enjoy about him. And I'm saying this so other people can discover him.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm adding that, for me, he doesn't resonate as much just because of what I just said. Yeah. But I know he's speaking truth.
Right. Yeah. And you're right. Ultimately, he's saying the same thing. And the exercise that I like to do is figure that out for myself. Right. So when I was immediately turned off, because it was the jargon was too heavy for me. It was too much. Weirdly enough, it was at that point, I didn't like to mix my spirituality and my science. I didn't like to do all that. So I was turned off at first, and it took me a minute. it took me quite a while to try to mingle the two. And ultimately I realized I liked it. I liked the way he mingles his science and with this to make the same point spiritually.
And see, I didn't even know that he does that.
Yeah, he does.
That he talks science. And
yeah,
I didn't know
he
that.
goes neuro. Yeah, he does a lot of brain science and neuroscience. And it and like I said, at first a lot of it went over my head. That's not where I am naturally, but I like the exercise. I like the mental exercise of it. It does appeal to that need that I have to make things somewhat logical.
Yeah. And now, do you like Deepak Chopra? Because, he was a medical doctor before he became the guru that he is.
Yeah, I do like Deepak. Yeah, of course, it's hard not to.
There's a book, and I'm bothered that I can't think of the author or the title, but I want to say the author was a physicist, and so he went into, I want to say, a coma, and he believed he died, and the book is about who he met when he went into this other world. And then he came back. I think he was gone for like 7 days. Wow. And then I'll share. I have the book. I mean, it was a best-selling book. I don't know why I'm blanking out. But he was able to prove, I believe, at the end of the book, like it was real what he experienced, because he was able to connect the dots to something that he discovered later that he didn't know. It doesn't sound familiar at all.
Nope.
Yeah,
it wasn't. But
never mind.
What it does bring up, though, is, in this vein of Deepak Chopra and Joe Dispensa, I do have a thing for people of science who engage. I thought of a book, Infinite Potential. Deepak Chopra, I think, wrote the intro for it, or maybe he wrote a positive review of it. I don't know. But it's a chemist. He's a chemist like me. And he connects spiritual principles to chemistry. And boy, that was a wild ride. That was a wild ride. It was crazy, but it was good stuff. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, so now where do we want to go next?
Where shall we go? There's so many places. So many places.
Well, I appreciate you being a supporter of this podcast. And that means so much to me.
Since day one.
Since day one.
Episode 1.
And there have been some episodes that have touched you in positive and negative ways. And I know that you can't remember the negative ways, because we talked about that beforehand. But definitely there were some that you were like, and something might come to me as we're talking.
Okay.
But
I would love for that.
But bring up some of the things that resonated for you.
So I love, in general, I like podcasts where multiple people talk to each other who are friends with each other or who are familiar with one another. So, and you know this, I love the podcast where you bring your family and y'all, either those or the kind where you have the group combos. So occasionally things happen in the culture and you need to, bring the people together and y'all chat it up. I love that. I found myself during one of your episodes talking to y'all. I mean, y'all didn't listen to me, but I was talking.
Was that with my nephew and cousin?
Yep, that was it. Yeah, it was.
Was that the one where we were talking about? Oh my God, Kendrick's video?
Nope, it wasn't Kendrick. It was. I don't know what it. Maybe it could have been, but it was definitely something in that vein. It was something that was going on in the culture.
We talked about relationships too. I can't remember.
Yeah, but it was one of those. You recently had one. What was the title? Gen X and Millennials.
Yeah, the different generations.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun episode too.
Yeah,
I really had fun with that.
Yeah, and I had I don't know if you remember this or not, but the reason I wanted to talk, and I don't know that I really got into it, but I just get annoyed with all the where I feel excluded. If I feel excluded, like if there's things going on, in conversation in Black culture, and I feel that it's being confined to a generation, I'll get annoyed because, and I don't have an example to bring up
I was
because
about to say, you can't
I
just
feel
say
like,
stuff.
well, what about me? I feel that way. So that's why I wanted to bring up some of the, I wanted to bring different generations together.
Okay. So you haven't felt excluded recently from anything?
No, something was coming up though for me. And I think the reason I was inspired, not that there was anything wrong, this was a wonderful episode, but I've been inspired by Nick Canon. And so his podcast, he will have, which you can see on YouTube or Amazon, and he was talking about things that men go through, different, and he had different generations on there because I'm blanking out. I'm blanking out. But he had on the guest that he had, but I just some of the things he was talking about, I was like,
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I might have to check that out.
Men in depression and how they cope with different things that go on in their lives. And I know that doesn't seem like that relates to the point I just made, but he was inspiring me to want to bring different generations together for a conversation.
Yeah.
And, where are you in your life right now? So Russell, my nephew, and Francesca are both in their 40s. And then Todd and I are both the same age.
Yep.
I'm not going to tell you what that age is. You just have to look
You know
it
what
up.
I'm saying? Yeah.
So he's actually a year older than me.
Okay.
So
There you go. There you go.
So yeah, I wanted to and there were different things going on, in everybody's life. And so I wanted to talk about it.
Yeah. I wonder how we could really capitalize on the power that exists when generations talk to each other.
Yeah.
I saw this. Have you seen this clip from the rapper KRS-One? It's a small clip where he's talking. And the point he's making is he's like, look, older people, when you kick it with young people, it makes you the sharpest in your circle.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And young people.
It's true. It's true. And that's how I feel. And vice versa. I cut you off. But vice versa. And that's how I feel. I mean.
Because you sharp. You got it going on.
Thank you very much. But no, if it wasn't for my family, I'd probably just be in a cocoon.
I'll see that.
But I do have a lot of varied interests, but my nephew in particular keeps me up on things I need to be up on, even especially technology. Just the other day, did you update your phone?
Yeah.
And then when I went to update my phone, I needed to update it again because he was like, no, you didn't update your phone. And I said, I did update my phone. But then I was still behind. I was on 17 and I needed to go to 18. So
Okay.
I was like 2 behind updates.
So let me ask you this then. To what degree do you engage the generation that is older? I mean, you're trying to make it sound as if there's only the younger generation. You're sandwiched.
And mine. Yeah. No, I believe I do engage. I mean, I certainly, now maybe not publicly, but I certainly have folks that are older than me that are in my life.
Okay.
And we engage. And sometimes the thoughts that cross my mind when I'm talking to them, I think, is this how like my nephews and nieces like perceive me? Because they will have, I'm thinking about a couple of loved ones I have in my life, and they will have a thought in their mind, a mindset about, say, something to do with me. And it sounds very logical, but that's not really the way that it is. And then I don't even try to correct them.
Oh, okay.
Or it could be about life. It could be about something in the news, but I don't try to change it. It would just take too much energy. So I just let them think what they think.
I see that. Yeah. I see that.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't thought of it that way. But yeah, I try to do both to engage the younger generation and folks who are a generation older. And it's fun. One of my favorite things about Sandy Springs, and I agree it's a microcosm of the United States, but it also has and I hate to give this away, but I just want to express like gratitude for it. We have a swath of like very talented retirees in this community. Like
I would say across the metro area,
right?
Too. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
You know, our community. It's robust in that way. So I really like it. There was a joke I think my daughter made. And she's like, Mom, it's like a majority of the people you hang out with are over 70. Because first of all, they're the only people who have the time and the wisdom to kick it with me on the regular basis. So yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But it's I do enjoy it. I get so much out of kicking it. Like.
And to speak to that a little more also is I was thinking I just had a cousin that passed in July and she was 91.
Wow.
And
sorry to hear that, but wow.
Thank you. And she was just so wise and laid back.
Yeah.
Very laid back. And I think about her, and my mom had a friend who I would go visit after my mom passed, and when she passed, she was either 101 or on her way to being 101. Wow. She lived to be 100. Mm-hmm. And when I would go visit her, this was when Obama was running. So this was 2008. Mm-hmm. And
you go to New York. You go to New York to visit?
No, she lived here.
Oh, okay.
She lived here. But she would just talk about how bored she was, you know, and so many people had passed away. You know, she's 100 years old, you know, and she would just be so bored. And she would get bored at like the things people might do to try to entertain her. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's just something to age and you still have an active mind. I mean, that's what we pray for, but you know, that's not where your body is. Or that's not where, you know, you can't necessarily get up and be as active as you want to. And, but the engagement of their mind was even my cousin, her memory would go and, you know, she just would say, you know, I tell me this again, you know, but it didn't take away from her vibrancy and her desire to know and learn and her desire to like go and do.
Wow. Yeah. Like the sort of the essence, if you will, of who she was.
Yeah. So, I was trying to remember something. So we're different generations, obviously.
That's not obvious. You ain't cracking over there. I don't know what you talking about. Obvious.
And I wish that I could. I would have to go back through too many episodes to try to remember. But I know some things will come up in episodes where you would make a comment, and this is what I wish. This is the reason I wish that I could remember is because the things that might bother me, it wouldn't necessarily bother you. I would wonder, was that generational? And then if I feel like there's some topic that even came up recently, not regarding my podcast,
okay,
but something that you were like, did that really bother you? And it might have been regarding College Park. It might have been regarding College Park because College Park is a city that I cover.
Yes,
in journalism, College Park, Georgia, and there is some misogyny that has taken place or disrespect. It's not an opinion; it's a fact, and there's video proof. And when I know sometimes, I mean, I think you could see that it was like making my head spin.
Yeah, I know.
And it wasn't making your head spin, although you could see it.
Right. Yeah, I can acknowledge it.
I wonder, is that like maybe it's because, now I didn't go through what my mom went through or anything, you know, in terms of life. But why do you think there's a difference in that?
Could it be because I'm in politics a little bit? I don't know. I do have I'm a little desensitized. I don't know what it is though, but it could be.
I should be desensitized.
I try, particularly when I'm looking at any elected body, I am absolutely trying to see the best in them. Trying to. But what triggers me, I get triggered by different stuff. So
such as?
I find I do find people who are condescending to their community to be a little bit triggering, a little bit. And if we're talking about elected officials,
How can a person be condescending to a community?
I think sometimes we believe, we're elected and that makes us higher. We are, of course, privy to information that maybe the public isn't privy to, whether you agree or disagree with whether that it should be that way. But I think we have it. Sometimes you see elected officials forget who they work for.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's, and they almost insulate themselves in the organization of government. And they forget that in its essence, it is just, you are there for people and you are appropriating their money. And it's interesting when you see people sometimes lose that when they're, or they think they lose it. So
Yeah.
I find that to be a little more triggering.
Yeah. And I tend to believe that a person who is that way was always that way.
Right. So, yeah, right. So that brings me to my second trigger, opportunism. People who view office as a way, and this exists, I'm telling you, as a way to either go up some ladder, some political ladder. One of the most annoying questions, I'm going to be honest, is what are you going to do next? This isn't, I'm not working in a company. Like I don't want to do anything next. I'm doing it. If I wanted to do something next, I would have jumped into that. This isn't a ladder.
Right.
But you see people in it with that mentality. I'm going to start here.
Yeah.
And then the goal isn't, let me serve my community. The goal isn't, let me, do my duty as an elected or public official. The goal is, let me go up the ladder. Let me get a bigger platform.
Right.
And then you have people who are in it also for the money. There's some money associated with some of these positions as well. So I've had elected officials come to me and literally express their reason for running is because it pays this much. That's why.
Yeah.
That happens.
I mean, I could see that. I could see that.
Yeah.
Because some of those, and depending on the city, it's a significant. I mean, it's not like you can live off this if you had no other job, but some of it is a good chunk of money.
Mm-hmm. It is, depending on where and what the position is. It can be.
Yeah.
It can be to some people. So it's.
So I'm going to bounce back and forth because since we're on this right now, I want you to talk about how you came to the metro Atlanta area and how you even decided to run, because I know that wasn't your intention. You came here and you really landed in probably the perfect community for you at the perfect time.
Yes, look at God. No, but that's true.
Yes.
It is. So you're talking about the story is just a lot of synchronicities, right? I moved here. I'm a transplant. I moved here to accept a tenure track position at a local university. Moved here more or less as a result of a Google search and looking at salary, doing the thing that we all do when we decide to move somewhere.
So you said you were ready to move, and so you started looking at Atlanta, the positions, and then where in Atlanta after you got the job?
So I knew that I would be in Dunwoody for work. So I just did kind of a radius and looked, and that landed me in North Sandy Springs because it was a nice commute from North Sandy Springs to Dunwoody, no highway. And also there's naturally affordable housing stock, like, which is the term. So it's
meaning you could find a place to live that was affordable for you.
Right. That was affordable.
Okay.
That was affordable. So
Okay.
that mattered.
And that's an interesting comment considering there's a lack of affordable housing here. Mm-hmm. But go ahead.
But we do have, there are some pockets that are more affordable than others. And I was able to get into a community that worked for me, and I could raise a child and work. And
your daughter was in the 5th grade?
She was in the 5th grade.
And she's about to graduate from high school, or
she's done. Yeah.
She graduated
She's in
from
college. She should be working on a paper right now as we speak, because it's due tomorrow.
So go ahead. We digress.
Yeah.
Go on.
But so I moved here, packed a U-Haul. We had a guinea pig. And it was me, my daughter, and our guinea pig. And we moved to just off of Roswell Road up here. And my entry into community was through her, through parent teacher associations, organizations, things like that. And Sandy Springs is the kind of place is that if people get the sense that you're willing to be engaged and be involved, I think the opportunities just sort of come, because people start saying, oh, well, Melody could do it. Oh, let's ask Melody to be on that committee, things like that. And I hadn't developed my no muscle yet. So there's a lot of yeses. And that led us to meeting, because I was asked to become engaged with sort of affordable housing initiatives.
Yeah.
And we connected that way, a small group of us.
Right.
So.
And that was a passion of mine. And I was looking for a way to get involved in affordable housing. And then I learned about Sandy Springs Together. Melanie Couchman was going to be speaking at the Community Assistance Center. And I think I went to that. And
as a reporter, or were you covering it?
No,
or?
I don't know that I was covering it, because I think I was working for the magazine at that time. Mm-hmm. So I went out of interest, and then I introduced myself to her. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it was through that avenue that you decided, I want to run for city council.
Well, sort of, right? So we connected around affordable housing and sort of began to develop an initiative. But then what that led to was an opportunity to become a part of Leadership Sandy Springs. And I don't know if you recall, but that's why we went out to dinner, because you had already been a member.
Oh, okay.
You were an alum.
Yeah.
And I was nervous about this.
Right.
I mean, this is at the time, and even now, but at the time, definitely the premier sort of collection of power in the community. And this single mom living in an apartment is about to be a part of this this program. And I was genuinely nervous about it. So you and I met and talked through that. So I completed that program and became a little more confident just about my ability to add value to the community. Didn't want to necessarily be an elected office per se, but a couple years after that, an open seat in the community came. And once again, I'll attribute this to God, but when you get asked the same weird question by people who don't know each other and haven't talked to each other, it makes you think, maybe this is a sign I need to I need to do this. And so that, and a desire to connect more deeply with the community as well.
Yeah.
Through that role.
So you had talked to me a few years ago about, well, when were you elected?
21.
21? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was a year in or so. And you had talked about really wanting to stay connected to you in this role. And so how have you been able to do that? I feel that you've been able to do that.
Do you?
absolutely.
Okay.
I really do. But how have you been able to do it and not become, and I know we talked about this a little bit, touched on this a little bit a few minutes ago, but how have you been able to do that? You didn't want to become, a politician in, some superficial way.
Right.
You communicated that.
I did.
After you were elected.
Yeah.
Maybe a year
true.
after.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think you touched on the significance of me being there as a first person of color. What was important was to be more than a symbol, to be more substantive, and also not to lose myself, to your point. And wow, thank you for saying that you don't think I have. I mean, I'm just saying that it's daily. I'm working on that.
Yeah. And that plays into even this podcast, because spirituality to me is about trying to stay connected to ourselves,
Right.
which is the divine part of us.
Yep.
So it's work. It's work.
Yep. It is work. It really is. So I appreciate you. I don't have a magic strategy for that. I struggle daily. I am fortunate in that I have very humbling things. Things humble me regularly. So that's good. My daughter still humbles me. So I can't get too caught up. But I'm humbled regularly. I have built a lot of relationships in this community that keep me humble. I'm very proud of the human beings I'm around regularly because I am held accountable. I am not around people who are afraid to critique me.
Yeah, you catch it. I mean, you probably catch it from Black folks, white folks, people of color, people trying to help you, people who don't like you. Yeah. You catch it from all around.
Yeah, my first year in office, I asked the mayor of Savannah for advice at a conference. And he said, well, what you need to recognize is that you exist at the nexus between white fear and Black expectation. And you have to navigate that. And boy, I catch it.
Wow.
I catch it, I catch it.
That is so perfectly put.
Yeah, I catch it. But it also, it makes for it makes for a great opportunity as well to be back to this idea of our community being a microcosm of America. It helps me understand the type of leadership that the country needs, which is our people who can exist in that space, in that fringe, if you will.
Right. And because we're not all alike.
No, we're not.
So yeah, you have to be nimble in life, right. But especially, if you're going to represent a body of people, right. Then you have to be nimble and see and understand that everybody isn't the same.
Right. And also courageous enough to take a stand when you need to,
mm-hmm.
and just let the consequences show up, whatever the consequences are.
Yeah.
I tend to, when I first got in office, I wanted everybody to like me. I'm not going to lie. I thought that the amount of people who liked you was a testament to your quality. But now what I go for is to just have a diverse array of people who don't like me.
Yeah.
If I could get a few people, if I could make everyone equally unhappy, that's a similar success.
It's so funny because most of my reporting career, I was in features and lifestyles, mm-hmm. and I would do some news, hard news here and there.
Mm-hmm.
And then in 2020, I started doing more news, covering local governments.
Oh, 2020.
Yeah. And so then I'm covering cities that I would write lifestyle stories for in the past. And so I started feeling like, what is this going to be like? You know, now I have to be critical, and I'm used to people liking me. And so I can relate to what you're saying. And so I had to just kind of ease myself in through the shallow end of the pool, you know, to now it's like it is what it is.
Yeah.
You know, it is what it is. And it's about, you know, being accountable.
Yeah.
Holding
you do
people
a great
accountable.
job of offering critique, of being willing to accept critique, but not, like you don't get defensive, but you also don't always, you know, you don't always agree with the critique. You just, I don't know, you do a really good job of being open to it.
Thank you.
But not always moved by it.
Thank you.
It's like, you know.
Yeah. I mean, nobody likes criticism, but I do try to accept it and weigh, is this true? You know, is this true? Is this valid, or is it not true? And I mean, it could be true 70% of the time or 80% of the time, but 20% of the time it might not be true. And so then I'm going to understand, hey, that's not true. They think that because of this, or
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
yeah.
That's it.
So to go back to triggers for a moment, and this may not even be triggers, but I was talking to you offline about my recent podcast about the that I did about the end of my relationship.
Yeah.
And I really am hoping to talk to a friend who's a therapist about communication between men and women. I'm hoping, I want to talk to a therapist, period, about this, but this one particular friend, I think she would be great. And she's someone from A Course in Miracles, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
So,
Nice.
but what I have found is that in people listening to that podcast, number one, I had some friends who were just triggered by my experience.
Okay.
And, or, you know, the how I felt, you know, just they were triggered because of their own experiences. And this is not like saying anybody's right or wrong. It's just like, you know, you with someone and then you're not, and you know, you are upset by that. And so, but in that episode, there were things that were coming up that I found that some people were saying, particularly men, about a particular part of the conversation of me talking, where they were just like tripping a little bit, where women were not. And so how did that episode land for you? Like, what kind of thoughts went through your mind?
So first, I always have to acknowledge, I don't know a lot about podcasting, but I do believe, and you can confirm this, that it is challenging to just sit here and talk. I don't know. Like first of all, let me just say that. And then for me, I didn't know. I hadn't put two and two together per se. So it was news to me when I watched the podcast. In fact, I was like, is she talking about who I think she's talking about? Seriously. But let me say there was vulnerability, which, I mean, we use that word, we toss that word around, but that was vulnerability. Like you put, like you can tell it was raw. So I appreciated that, and I found that extremely engaging. You did a wonderful job of articulating your experience without throwing the other person under the bus. You really didn't. I walked away. There were some moments for me, obviously, that were a little, I guess, triggering, or where I just felt a lot of empathy for you as a woman, and I get certain things. I think it was the airport. Might have been the airport for me, but
in the beginning.
But I just appreciated just how you were able to deliver like that story without, like, you did it, like you were true to yourself, and you didn't make, you know, any extra drama out of it. You know, you gave us just enough to empathize with you, and just have an experience with you. You didn't make it about anything else. And I thought that was masterful. I don't know if you practiced it or what, but you didn't. I think I texted you. I mean, I was deeply moved. That was one of my, that's one of my favorite episodes, quite honestly. And just as a woman, single, I am a single, well, I'm single. I'm a Capricorn.
She's single.
I'm a Capricorn. But what it left me with, obviously I fear jumping in and things not working out and then having a but you made it like this is life and it happens and I don't regret it. It was a great experience. I mean, I think you almost said that.
Yes.
We did this
Absolutely.
and that and I had this experience and that. And it just made me less fearful for myself going into, I have a Match.com profile that one day I'm going to publish. One day I'm going to hit publish. It is going to be public. But you made me, whereas you would think that, because it didn't work out, that I was that much more ready.
Wow.
Like I can, because it's going to happen. People are people. And as we get a bit on the older side, as we grow, we have our ways. So we're not as malleable as we were. So you gave me hope. I mean, there were some moments that were triggering and I was like, oh yeah, been there. But it gave me a lot of hope.
Well, thank you so much. And I really appreciate that a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I brought it up because a week ago I was with some friends and I feel like I need some water right now. Wait a minute.
Okay. Let's do that.
I was with some friends and two of the men who were there, married men. Mm-hmm. I was with some couples, and they had listened to the podcast. Mm-hmm. And they made a comment, or were commenting for a while, about something, which I'm going to tell you in a second, which was something that had been brought up to me by other men who had listened to the podcast. And so this one part where I was talking about flying Delta One and him commenting to me that this might not be something that we might, do. We might not always be able to do. And so they thought that I came across as not appreciative. And I was like, what? Well, I thought I had communicated earlier about how appreciative I was. But their thing was, well, what he was saying to you was, I really love you and we might not always be able to do this. Ooh. And what he wanted to hear was, I love you so much and it doesn't matter how we fly, as long as we're together. Yep. And so I said, well, first of all, that's true. That's true for me. Mm-hmm. Second of all, I believe them, when they give me a man's perspective, I believe that was probably his perspective, right? But I said, but he didn't say that. Right? No, he didn't. He didn't say that. And so then they were like, it doesn't matter. They said, you can't just take everything that somebody says, at face value. And so then my head wanted to spin, because I feel like if I can't go on what you say, then what am I doing? Of course, I have sensibilities and we have feelings and, those other senses. But I'm taking what you're saying to me as you mean what you're saying to me. Right. And that's what I'm responding to. And so it turned into this conversation. And again, that wasn't the first time that was brought up to me. And so I thought that was interesting because women who had listened to it didn't feel that way at all. And, they felt like, well, you explained yourself and you said what it was. You said how you felt and how you are.
Because your response was something more like, hey, don't speak so fast per se.
Well, the second time that it came up on the plane when we were about to land, that was when I said, hey, speak for you, because for me, that stuff is real. When we put out in the atmosphere, I can't do something, that is, that's what the universe is responding to. And so it had been affecting me that, this, the I can't part. Not that it matters. It's just that I can't part. And even in the airport, I had said, when he first brought it up, I said, well, you don't know what could happen. I said, we could have some kind of windfall. My podcast might blow up.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
And then somebody said to me, well, you're talking about you there. And I just feel like there's such a lack of communication, between men and women. Yep. And even earlier today, I was thinking about, well, what matters? Does it matter to you what I say or the truth? Or what you say to me or the truth? Because if I misunderstand you, like let's say you say something that like really bothers me.
Okay.
And then I tell you, hey, that really offended me and that really hurt me. Right. And then you say, well, this is what I actually meant. And it's something completely different that is not hurtful. Well, then I accept that and I laid what I thought aside.
Yeah.
Because what matters to me is the truth.
Right.
So, yeah, I can say something the wrong way or you can say something the wrong way. But I think that what we tend to do is a lot of times is run with what somebody said and not care about what they meant. So I'm going to take what they said as truth. Okay. And so I accept that.
Right.
I'm just still tripping like, well, that's not what he said. So how am I supposed to understand that that's what he said?
Right.
And that wasn't even like the big issue around the trip. But it was just something minor that I thought I could bring up.
Yep.
But, men who listened to the episode, like, they took it in a big way.
And it's beautiful that at least they were able to kind of offer this perspective that wasn't offered. Boy, how much more, what would the world be if we could really articulate, if we were really willing to go there with, like you say, the truth.
Yeah.
Where you could tell me what you heard and I can tell you what I was saying.
Right. Or I can tell you how I feel.
Right.
Because, that's what is really getting me about this communication, not just in this situation, I'm talking about like period, is just and I have shortcomings myself. I'm not saying this like I don't have shortcomings. I have big shortcomings.
Yeah, you have long shortcomings. Okay,
but just our shortcomings when it comes to not saying how we really feel, because that's how wars start. That's how people die. Just misunderstandings.
Yeah, I was just about to say, what do we lose as a result? What are the consequences?
That and pride.
Right, and pride. Yeah, pride is a big one. But I struggle with it too. I'm not like you. I have long shortcomings. I have big shortcomings, and I have caught myself many times taking what I perceive and running with it. Even in the face of like the truth, which is what I was, what I'm really saying. I'll tell you, I am getting better in the broader, like for example, political landscape, like partisan stuff of being able to really hear what someone's saying. oh, you're just saying that you want your family to be successful, right? You're just saying that you want your family to be safe, right?
Yes.
But I'm still not good at it. But I do think it's transformative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Being able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to do that.
And speaking of that, I often bring up to you here in Sandy Springs, like several years ago, it was a big deal when several cities in the area were bidding for this college, where this campus was going to go.
Yeah, Gwinnett.
And was that Gwinnett Tech?
Yep.
And in Sandy Springs, it was just a visceral, people didn't want it. The mayor at the time wanted to bring the campus here and was a big proponent of bringing the campus here. But in the meetings, the meeting, as I've told you, just for the audience, it got so bad in one of the meetings, this standing room only meeting, that somebody said, it feels like a lynching in here, because the fear was if the campus came, then Black people were going to come and they were going to be on the bus system, and that was going to bring in crime. And so the city didn't get it. Another affluent city that wanted it got the campus.
And everything's okay.
Everything's all right. But I was realizing that it was also a class thing. It wasn't just a race thing, that it was a class thing. And they can really be like gelled together. And people are just afraid of what they're going to lose. Because when different projects would come, sometimes, it would infringe on somebody's yard. They might lose different, a part of their property, a foot or something from their property. And people are so afraid of what they're going to lose as a result of your gain.
Yeah. We have to be very careful, right? And it's that book back there, Nonviolent Communication, very helpful, because you really gotta, in those situations, you really gotta get to the essence of what someone's trying to say.
Yes.
Yep.
The essence of what someone is trying to say.
What is it? And it may require talking to them. So we have to be willing.
Require words.
Yeah.
Words may be necessary.
You may need to talk to them to figure out what's, we have our newest issue is we have a public school potentially closing. We've talked about this. But yeah, last week we had meetings packed and full of emotion. And the challenge is, how do you hear people? And make sure you get what they are saying.
Yes.
What is the fear, or what is the need, rather?
Both. Yeah. The need and the fear.
Yep.
Yeah.
The need and the fear. But then let's go back to interpersonal relationships. That's something I do fear in, getting into the dating world. Communication.
Why?
I don't know. Just having to talk. I don't know. Just I do. There is an apprehension to having to be transparent with someone, which is really the only way to do it.
No, it is hard.
It's challenging. That's why when I listened to your podcast, I couldn't throw the other party under the bus, because I know how you just really want somebody to get you.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I ain't got to say all that.
Yes.
Why we got to talk about everything?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny, because I know people think, oh, Adrian want to talk about everything. No, I want that too. But I do love to communicate.
Yep.
It is a thrill for me. To talk and, learn from what you're saying, and, but not if it's a lot of work. I don't want a lot of work with talking. I want it to be, I want it to be, just a flow.
Yeah.
A flow of conversation.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some of us too, it goes back to the homes you were in. I don't know. I didn't hear a lot of talking. Not real talking. It was like, how's the weather? What happened at work today?
What do you mean?
The homes people were in, the homes we were, folks were in. You didn't grow up around a lot of conversation.
Right. And I did.
How do you learn how to talk to people? I'm an only child. I had imaginary friends, but I'm not weird. Okay. I'm cool.
Not from what I've seen.
I'm cool. But no, I didn't grow up around anybody really. I mean, my parents would talk about stuff, but my parents are not like the deep talkers, you know. And now I'm a single parent of a child who expects me to talk, and I struggle, you know. Yeah, that's why I read nonviolent communication.
So where's the discomfort? Like if she wants to talk, and usually the kid doesn't want to talk.
Yeah.
So where's the discomfort come in if she wants to talk?
About it typically conversations with her lead to me feeling that I need to do something. I have a need to, I'm prone to action, being action oriented. And oftentimes, specifically conversations with her lead to, oh, now I need to do this, or now I need to do that.
Is it a conversation about something that might be going on with her, or something in general?
I'll say this, both. Something in general, something that may be going on with her. To the extent that I'm a fixer, like I like to fix stuff, she is my number one project. And I cannot, as mature and mindful as I am, I cannot shake it. And it is tough. Even if she called me the other day and she expressed anxiety over current events. She's like, Mom, between the stuff with Diddy and all these political ads, I can't be on, I'm struggling with Instagram right now. And she wanted to talk about it. And I just couldn't do it. I just couldn't go there because I'm going to want to fix her and fix it for her and all this. And it's just not.
And a part of that, isn't it just being a parent and, this is, your baby?
Yeah. Right. There's that. But yeah. Right. I know what she wants is a friend a little bit. And I struggle with it. Yeah, I do. I'm challenged. I'm communicatively challenged in ways, but I can acknowledge. That's also why I appreciate you, because you communicate. You're a communicator.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I know because people tell me that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I did grow up where we talked about stuff. I mean, our home was as dysfunctional as the next one, but we talked about like current events or different things. Now, one of my brothers, I could find him annoying because he would say, I mean, as an adult, he would say, "What you want to talk about? Pick a topic."
Really?
I mean, that's how much he liked to talk.
Yeah.
Now that's a lot. That's a lot. I hardly responded to that. I hardly said, oh, well, let's talk about DC, what's going on in politics. I hardly said that.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot. I like for stuff to be organic.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree with you. And I'm growing into it, to be honest, valuing conversation. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we close, and I love this. And so this just means we have to do this again and again and again.
Now, I just said I am communicatively challenged, but okay.
So can you share, and you've heard this question before in listening to the podcast, can you share a miracle that you experienced where you said, this is just God, I had nothing to do with this? If you're willing to.
Let me think. Yeah, I will. So I think let me think about that. I've had all kinds of experiences. If I think, you'll edit it and do what you got to do. Okay,
Yes.
cool. I just want to think. And you're right. That's always a question that you have. I wasn't ready. Sorry. Yeah. I would have to say that when I look at who I was a decade ago versus who I am now, when I look at my life 10 plus years ago versus my life now, that contrast is a miracle. The events that sort of came together to transition me from that place, and we'll talk about that on another podcast, to where I am now in terms of just the peace and the, obviously there are challenges, okay, but just where I am now, that is in itself miraculous, I would say. Just going from just the amount of turmoil, realizing that I contribute to it, to what comes into my life, like subscribing. Once I started to take control of that, the sort of improvement in my conditions, internal and external, that to me is, I can't attribute it to anything else but the work of a higher power. I cannot. When I had a thought a few days ago, an exercise I like to do that one of my financial advisor friends suggested was, imagine yourself sitting across from the 70-year-old Melody Kelley, right? And, what are you saying to her, and what is she pissed off at you about? Girl, what you do to my knees?
Ooh.
But also sit across from the 20-year-old Melody Kelley. And I did that. And it's like, just, transitioning her into a better place has been a miracle, and I think.
I love that. And, I feel like my sensibilities tell me that, like, you've got, like, your inside, like your inner spirit does a lot of work, and you just let it.
Yep.
Because there could be someone, did you say you grew up Baptist?
Southern Baptist.
Southern Baptist. You grew up Southern Baptist. You're a scientist, an academic, and that doesn't lend itself to, for lack of a better word, new age spirituality, for lack of a better word. And, but there's something in you, there's some inner work to me that is going on where you're so open to it. But the word that's really coming up for me is that you allow it. And it's not that you're not conscious about it, but it's like you might not even be thinking about it because you're just letting it do what it does. It's like you're just letting your spirit do what it does.
But here's what's interesting though, to the extent that I've had a transformation, believe it or not, it has been rooted in scientific method. The reason I can confidently let, something bigger than me do the work is because I've seen the evidence over the course of years. I have results. You know what I mean? So the scientist inside of me respects results, which is okay. So before you were in a place of surrender, these were your life's conditions. You were in hell, right? And now, you're okay. I remember when my car would break down and it'd be like the end of the world. Now I'm like, okay, I'll just call let me call the shop, see what's going on with this engine light. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, but it's rooted, so it's circular.
Yeah.
It's rooted in
How are you when you're really worried about something? or, you're in a space that, you're hurting or you're worried or.
Yeah, distracted, not present at all. Yeah, I mean, that's what anxiety looks like on me. Distraction.
You'll distract yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's what we're supposed to do.
Oh, okay.
I mean, well, no, I'm saying that because that's what I hear spiritual teachers say, like to not feed into that energy, to distract ourselves, like play music or do something to not give it momentum.
I guess what I mean by that is I distract myself into thinking about the thing, right? So whenever I'm feeling anxious, the truth is there's never anything really going on in that moment. And instead of embracing that reality, which is ain't nothing really going on, I lean into it. I lean into that worry about the future. I lean into that I shoulda, coulda, woulda in the past, as opposed to just being in the moment where maybe I could enjoy some music or the birds chirping. I am not doing that when I'm at my worst. I'm in a different place.
Yeah. Well, Miss Melody Kelley.
Yes.
This has been awesome. This has been absolutely awesome.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Finally. Thank you. And we're going to have to do this again.
Yeah.
If you're willing.
Yeah, we are. We're going to have to do this again. I think so. I agree.
So thank you again.
Thank you for joining us. Remember, you can listen to all Let's Start Healing episodes wherever you get your podcasts. Get in touch with me. Let me know what you think of the episode. Please subscribe to Let's Start Healing. Like the episode. You can email me at letstarthealingpodcast@gmail.com. I'm on Instagram at Let's Start Healing Podcast. Also at Adrienne Marie 19 on Instagram and Twitter. So until next time, let's start healing.